Have you ever been left alone in a car at night outside a pharmacy? I'm Sam, and I have a story to share with you. This tale begins when I was just a kid, around 5th or 6th grade, and it's one that stuck with me all the way into my early 20s. Picture this, it's evening and my dad and I are heading home. On our way, my dad decides to pull over and stop at the pharmacy. He needs to pick up a few things, nothing out of the ordinary. Now, I'm a stubborn kid at this age, and I decide to stay in the car. It's parked right outside the pharmacy, and I figure I'll be fine. My dad, though, he's not so sure. He insists, trying to coax me into going with him, but I'm not having any of it. Eventually, against his better judgment, he leaves me in the car and heads into the pharmacy. The pharmacy is situated on a bustling street. It's not late, but it's not early either, so there's a steady flow of people and cars passing by. To the left of the pharmacy, there's this narrow, dark alley. It's the kind of alley you'd see in a movie, leading off into the shadows, likely winding its way to the backside of the street. At first glance, it's just another alley, nothing more. But there's something about it that gives me the creeps. Maybe it's the way the light from the street lamps doesn't quite reach into its depths. Or maybe it's the eerie quiet that seems to cling to it, contrasting with the noise of the busy street. But like most things that make us uncomfortable, I try to ignore it. I'm focused on waiting for my dad, on the comfort of our familiar car, on the normalcy of a routine pharmacy stop. I didn't pay much attention to that alley at first. Little did I know that alley would soon become the center of my attention and the source of a fear that still lingers to this day. It was only a few minutes when I noticed a guy coming out of the alley. A figure detached itself from the shadows, a man, tanned and scruffy, looking like he was in his late 20s or early 30s. His attire was nothing to write home about, a dirty white shirt and jeans, but it was the way he moved and looked around that set off alarm bells in my head. His gaze was frantic, darting here and there, as if he was expecting someone, or perhaps afraid of being seen. It was unsettling, to say the least. And then his eyes found mine. It was as though a bolt of lightning had struck me. He started moving towards me, his walk peculiar, almost like a shuffle. His back was slightly bent, hands hidden in his pockets, eyes continuously flicking back and forth between the pharmacy and the car. The way he kept staring at me, it felt as if he was looking straight into my soul. It was unnerving. I felt a chill run down my spine, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried not to show my fear, tried to pretend that I hadn't noticed him. I quickly looked away, trying to keep his figure in my peripheral vision, but the fear was there, a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I could feel his gaze on me like a physical touch, and it took every ounce of my courage not to bolt from the car right there and then. I was alone, vulnerable, and there was a stranger approaching me with a look in his eyes that I didn't like one bit. It felt like time had slowed down, each second stretching out into an eternity. My mind was racing, thoughts whirling around like a tornado. What did he want? Why was he approaching me? Was I in danger? I didn't know the answers, but one thing was clear. I was scared. I quickly looked away, trying to keep his figure in my peripheral vision. Once he got to the car, he tried to open the door. A cold wave of fear washed over me as I heard the metallic rattle of the handle, the only barrier between me and the stranger. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, each beat echoing the seconds that passed. The world seemed to slow down, each moment stretching into an eternity. The hum of the busy street faded into the background, drowned out by the rush of blood in my ears. My mind raced, thoughts whirling like a tornado. I had to do something, anything to deter him. A spark of an idea flashed in my mind. I didn't have a phone, but he didn't know that. I reached into my pocket, my movements slow and deliberate, as though I were pulling out a device. I turned my body away from him, lifting my hand to my ear in a universal sign of a phone call. The stranger's attempts to open the door continued, his persistence chilling. His eyes flicked between the pharmacy and me, a predator assessing his prey and the potential risks. I could feel his gaze, a tangible pressure on the back of my neck. The fear was like a living thing in the car with me. a third presence that made the small space feel even more claustrophobic. Each jostle of the handle was a jolt of fear, a reminder of the danger just inches away. Sweat trickled down my back, the adrenaline making me hyper-aware of every sensation. I held my breath, my body rigid as I pretended to talk into an imaginary phone. The stranger's attempt slowed, his movements becoming less frantic. He cast one last look at the pharmacy, then at me. His expression was hard to read, a mix of frustration and concern. Then, after what felt like forever, he gave up. The stranger, the potential predator, walked away, disappearing back into the dark alley from which he came. His eerie retreat was a haunting echo of his approach, his strange gait etched into my memory. I quickly got out of the car and went into the pharmacy to look for my dad. I found him in one of the aisles, concern etched on his face as he saw my pale, frightened expression. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, and began to recount the entire unnerving incident to him. His face turned white as he listened, his grip tightening on the shopping basket. Once the tale was told, he dropped the items he was holding and rushed out, looking for the stranger, but he was long gone. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the gravity of what could have happened sinking in. The bustling pharmacy seemed to fade into the background as we shared a quiet, solemn moment. My dad then pulled me into a tight hug, whispering words of relief that I was safe. His reaction was a stark reminder of the potential dangers I had narrowly escaped. The face of the stranger, his creepy stare, and his chilling walk still send shivers down my spine. I can't help but think about the what-ifs. What if the car door hadn't been locked? What if he had been more persistent? What if I hadn't pretended to make a call? The possibilities were as dark as the alley he had emerged from. The incident was a rude awakening to the harsh realities of the world. It was a reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places, even on a busy street in front of a pharmacy. The stranger's chilling presence haunted me for days, his face etched in my mind as a symbol of the lurking dangers in our world. The aftermath of the incident left a lasting impact on my perception of safety and security. It served as a stark reminder of the importance of being aware of one's surroundings, of trusting one's instincts when something doesn't feel right. It's a lesson I carry with me to this day, a lesson I learned in the hardest way possible. To this day, I haven't forgotten his creepy stare and walk. God knows what he wanted to do to me. This chilling encounter, more than a decade ago, left me with indelible lessons that I carry to this day. It illustrated, in the most frightening way, that danger can lurk in the most mundane of places, even in a parked car outside a pharmacy. This experience taught me the importance of vigilance, of always being aware of my surroundings. It's not about living in fear, but about understanding that safety should never be taken for granted. It's about recognizing that seemingly ordinary situations can quickly turn extraordinary, and not always in a good way. The second lesson was about the value of intuition, that gut feeling that something isn't right. It's an innate sense we all have, and it's there for our protection. We should never ignore it. I'm still paranoid to this day and would never stay in the car waiting for someone. I'm so thankful to God for protecting me.